Welcome back to Coffee and Kale. Today we are talking to Michael Kornegay, or Mike as he prefers to be called. He is with Housing and Urban Management, and it's all about the landlords today. So if you are a property owner or looking to become a property owner or investor and rent your property out, this is the episode for you. We're talking all about things that you should be aware of when renting to a protected class. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Coffee and Kale podcast. Here we have an educational approach to everything real estate and finance related. If you're a first-time home buyer, a seasoned investor, or just looking for an understanding, this is the place for you. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'll be your guide on your financial journey. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and join us as we grow together. Hello and welcome back to Coffee and Kale. Today we have Mr. Michael Kornegay. You prefer Mike?
Yeah, Mike's fine.
Mike Kornegay of Housing and Urban Management, and we are going to be talking about how the landlords can help themselves and prepare themselves to rent their properties to some of the voucher tenants in DC and surrounding areas. That sounds interesting. Please keep watching. Okay, so Housing and Urban Management. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about the organization, what you do, who it's geared towards. What is Housing and Urban Management?
Okay, Housing and Urban Management is a company that specializes in helping housing providers lease their properties out to subsidized housing recipients. Yeah. And it's various programs. A lot of times housing providers say, well, I want to rent out to Section 8. Okay. And it sounds good, but there's branches to it, like the military, you know. Like, okay. So you have Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. Okay. There's so many different programs.
So there's branches within the subsidized housing community.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we help them to define these branches. There's also levels to it. They wouldn't know. There's, in these programs, there's PG Community College and there's Harvard. Okay. And you'll never know. Yeah. You know, until you get somebody that dropped out of PG Community. Yeah. And then you'll tell.
So we met because I was looking for a subsidized tenant and a friend introduced me to you. Now this is a very unique business model. I have never heard of this before. So it started as property management. How did you figure your way through these various levels of housing providers or the different levels of the subsidized housing world?
Okay. So I'm going to go back a couple of years, 22. Yes.
I wasn't going to hold you to it. You decided to throw that out there, but okay, we'll keep it in there. Uh-huh.
So the beginning was me. I just want to take it all the way through. The beginning was me purchasing a 4-unit apartment building myself and renting it out to Section 8. Okay. And leaving my only 9-to-5 job I had, which was a high school teacher at the time. Okay. Once I did that, I'm just going to walk through. I started selling 4-unit buildings to first-time investors. Okay. First-time home buyers, not investors, first-time home buyers. Yeah. From there, I ended up having a real estate sales team. Okay. But the whole space, everything was based upon this subsidy. Okay. And leasing the subsidy tenants. And then even to go back further than 22 years, I'm sorry, I just want to bring this up. Yeah. Because this does help. I come from DC. Okay. Out of a family that was in the system. And what's unique about my family is that I think maybe 90% of them, they're off. So they use it. Now people tell me that's not common.
Oh, they used it for what it was for and now have matured out of the program.
Doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, everything. Yeah. So it can work for people. Yeah. So I say that. I'm witness to that. But then just coming into today, I'm sorry. I keep getting nervous. I'm sorry.
What you nervous about? We just talking. I don't know much about it. So tell me, is it DC primarily? Do you do DC, Maryland, and Virginia working with the subsidized programs, or how does...
So right now we're doing DC primarily. Okay. Other jurisdictions we plan on getting into eventually, maybe like 1 or 2 years down the line. Okay. But right now we're DC 100%.
Okay. And DC just recently changed their rules for subsidized tenants. Is that right? Or have they changed their pay scale? Tell me more about that switch.
Right. So what they did is they changed their payment standard. So for the longest, they had a particular, it was a link that was on the website, and it would tell you per subdivision what they were going to pay if the tenant paid utilities or if the landlord paid.
Okay.
And July 1st, they changed it. It's some relationship they have with affordablehousing.com. There's a link on their site if you go to it and you say for owners or for landlords, and then you can put your property in it. And what it gives is, it gives you multiple ranges. Okay. It gives you one range. I see the trend that it's like, it gives you like 20 properties, 25 properties that they pull the comps on. And it's in like a less than a quarter-mile radius. Okay. And then they open it up, you know, a couple for the zip code, and then they open it up for the entire city. Okay. And that's what they're using now to establish the payment standard. So it's kind of...
So is it like a mini appraisal? I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm glad you did. I mean, what's funny about it is that they're using comps. I guess you could say it's like an appraisal. Okay. There is a features and amenities form that they have you to fill out. Okay. And then that form is completed by the inspectors, and then...
So this sounds like they're still working the...
I think they're working the bugs out because there are other programs, agencies that have not adopted it yet. Okay. Yeah, everybody hasn't followed suit. So some people are waiting until they work the bugs out, then they're going to jump in, maybe.
Okay. Now, what's your reaction? You think the new system is better, worse, or equivalent to the old system?
Well, I think the new system has the potential to be better if they work the bugs out. For one, a housing provider should be able to plug in his features and amenities in the beginning and know what the property is going to rent for. We shouldn't have to go through the motion showing the property and then have a decision come back, which we can't even get into, question the comps, ask to see them. There's a lot of ambiguity that can be removed if they just allow the housing providers to know exactly what the compensation will be up front, like it was before.
Okay. Now tell me this, what is the PUSSH score? Does that go into this determination, or is that a different part of the process?
Oh, no. Actually, the PUSSH score is something that is a proprietary thing that Housing and Urban Management has, and what it stands for is Pre-Approved Underwriting Standard for Subsidized Housing. Okay. It just gives a score to tenants with subsidies from 300 to 850 on some criteria that's unique to that demographic. So it's not credit score, it's not, some of the traditional things, time on the job. Okay. It's other things that we found that were the factors on determining whether or not you had a suitable subsidized housing tenant. So
I like that. So as a mortgage professional, we use the FICO, right? And Correct. It has a similar ambiguity. Like we don't know what goes into it and what comes out of it. Mm-hmm. So it's nice. It sounds like you guys are standardizing the way that you evaluate tenants using the PUSSH score. Exactly. Okay, I like this proprietary stuff. See, I told you there was a reason why when I started talking to you, it was very apparent very early on that you understood this part of the market. You knew what you were doing. You knew what you were looking for. So for those landlords out there that are looking to move on, to rent your property out, HUM might be a good place for you when you're looking for options in the rental market. Now tell me this, what are the top 3 mistakes that landlords make when they're evaluating tenants or when they're going through this process?
Okay, let me see. Yeah.
Or you can give top 5 if that's easier.
So let me do the top 3. So the first one, I think, is paradigm. Okay. So a lot of landlords come in and they say, well, I'm just going to rent it to Section 8. And as you say that, there's something in your paradigm that makes you feel a certain way about the demographic, which leads into the next thing, not competing. Because if you feel like, I'm just going to rent it to Section 8, and as you're saying that, you're saying it with a certain paradigm, then you're not going to put your best foot forward, and you're not going to compete.
Oh, I understand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then once you do that and you don't compete, then you sort of get exactly what you sort of started with. You created you created a circle, so now you get to continue saying whatever your preconceptions that may not be, about the demographic. Sure. Yeah, it's a circle that you make for yourself. So just the solution to it is that I think housing providers shouldn't say, I'm just going out to Section 8. In the back of their mind or out of their mouth, they should treat it as if I'm going to try to compete, whether I'm renting out the Section 8 or the regular market. I'm going to put my best foot forward, and I'm going to get the upper echelons of what I can within this demographic. And I think I hit all three, and I just set the solution.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that Section 8 is just one part of the umbrella programs that are offered by DC specifically. What others are there?
Well, yeah, I say Section 8 because it's easy for people to grasp, right?
Sure, of course.
But, I mean, there's so many programs. There's like, there's local programs, there's new programs coming out, there's programs that are for 1 year and then they renew. There's programs that are for 5 years. Like, there's so many programs, you know. I guess the way I see it is like, you have federal and then you have local programs. And I look at it like the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean. And then you have all of these little programs that run from it, you know, the funding.
Sure. So these are programs that will pay a landlord rent for their program participants. Is that fair?
Exactly. That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what about the top three top three mistakes that real estate professionals make? And if you can talk a little bit about how realtors or real estate professionals plug into this too, because my reaching out to you is simply as a landlord needing some assistance. So do real estate professionals get involved in this? If so, how? And what missteps are they making?
Well, you know what? It's funny. Something that just came to mind. Our company is independent brokerage now, but before I was with another brokerage, I won't mention the name. They had a couple thousand realtors, and they have management set up, and one of the managers said, "How do you do this business and stay out of trouble?" He said to me, he says that all of our lawsuits are coming from this, and we don't even make our money there. We're almost ready to just give it up altogether. And then there was another, and I'm going to get right to the point in a second. There was another gentleman who was maybe manages about 1,000 units, you know, a mid-sized property manager. And there was an attorney that came and did a presentation at one of the organizations he's a part of, and he was talking about all of the lawsuits are based on the things that people say. And it's not the owners that are saying it. It's the people who are on the phone. So real estate agents or your admins, all you have to do is say one or two things wrong, and that's the whole company that takes the loan. So now just to go to realtors, some of the things that they say that they should not. You don't want to say, we don't take vouchers. It seems obvious. You have to get some words. You have to say, let me run it by my client.
I see.
Give me some summary points of the client. Like, that's what we do naturally. But they have to do something besides say, I don't take vouchers. Even if you say, hold on a second and hang up. I mean, do anything except say, I don't take vouchers. Fair. Then there's another thing that they do that I've seen my staff a long time ago try to do, is try to explain why the owner's not going to take the voucher. You know, they might say, hey, you know, we're not going to take it because the owner had bad luck last time. The tenant messed the house up. They try to explain it as if that makes it better, and it doesn't. So that makes it worse. Another thing too, I notice a lot of real estate professionals, so leasing out, nobody goes to get their real estate license to say, I want to rent out the Section 8. It's just sort of these, you get hit with all these lemons and you pick it up and you make some juice, you know, lemon juice, right? So, but it is a niche. And there's a lot of things you could do wrong. There's a lot of things that you can bottleneck that it's almost like you need to be connected to be able to circumvent it. You know, there's people that get stuck in these holding places for a long time. But long story short, sometimes real estate agents should outsource or pass the ball. No, since we went to, the people that went to real estate, I know in the beginning I wanted to sell investment property and invest. And nobody says I want to do that. And since you know that is not the place where you came in, don't try to be at all, because that way you can get your company sued and you're also hurting your client, because you're not an appraiser, you're not a home inspector, you are a realtor who has a specialty of doing a particular thing. So
now tell me this, would you recommend, because as a loan officer sometimes I hear, I'm planning to buy this property and rent it out down the line, or I have clients who are simply purchasing to be investors. Is there a business model where people can buy with the intent of renting out to a protected class? Do you see that sometimes? Do you work with clients that's their business model, that's what they do?
Yes, ma'am, all day. I'm thinking maybe 80% of my clients are like that.
Really?
Yeah, they just repeat, and they have that business model in mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you think the city's doing with the programs and the way that they're running the programs? I know we talked about the changes a little bit earlier. Are there resources out there for landlords? Because as a landlord, sometimes I feel like I'm on an island by myself, which is why I'm so thankful for you, because you very much helped me through this one particular transaction. But universally, are there things the city's doing for landlords or for the program specifically, or are there things they could be doing to help us navigate it a little bit better?
Education, yeah. So when COVID hit, they did something. They did there was a 30-minute course.
Okay.
Where you could learn about HUD, lead certification, and they did it not for the housing providers, but for their own checking the box for their risk, to make sure that when they were doing remote inspections, everybody who came out, whoever the proxy was, they had that training, they can identify lead, they affirmed that it wasn't in there.
Virtually, you mean?
Virtually, for those virtual ones, right? So my thing is, you took a course, you downloaded a certificate, and that certificate had to be provided each time somebody came out who participated in that inspection process.
Okay.
So they did that for them to check their boxes. I always say, if it feels like there are in-laws, they're okay until it's time to pick a side.
Yeah, I see.
So my thing is that there are plenty of housing providers who can benefit landlords and real estate agents, because the fair housing class isn't enough in continuing ed. Because if that was the case, the brokers that I was with that had management and thousands of realtors wouldn't say that their realtors are constantly getting sued. So obviously the continuing ed isn't enough, plus management. So I think what the city could do better, the same way they created that training, that certificate program, even though it was 30 minutes, that's an example of what they would need to do to teach realtors and housing providers the scenarios, how to stay outside of the fair housing violations, how to stay outside of, stay away from the things that would get them in the hot seat instead of just allowing them to just walk into it. It just takes repetition in the class. Every 2 years, continuing ed isn't enough.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just...
Yeah. Well, maybe we can leverage your background as a high school teacher into an educational platform to share with the city and see what we can do about
Maybe
that.
so. Maybe so.
Now tell me, what kinds of things do you encounter day to day? Because your business model is so unique, I'm curious as to what kind of repeatable things do you see that the general public might not be aware of that happen out there?
The thing that I see the most of is housing providers not being aware of their competition, the moves in the market. Like the key is, so when you're not aware of your competition and when you don't compete, then it forces you to have to pick in that demographic that is coming to wherever your neighborhood is. You have to pick not from the top, but you have to pick from the bottom.
Okay. Are they handicapping themselves by
not being aware of what you need to do? And also, there's another thing that has made a major impact. Since COVID, and a lot of these places shut down, like WeWork shut down, but they're taking hits in a lot of these offices. They're taking hits. There's a lot of office to multifamily conversions. And there's a lot of developers coming in who are putting, now this is something that's real relevant, putting out product that the average landlord who bought a 4-unit or 6 or 8 cannot compete with, rooftop decks and all types of things that is not even a part of what we got into thinking we would rent out to Section 8. So you have to compete even more than you did before today. And when you don't and you're sitting there and the bills start to kick in and you just say, well, let's just give me somebody, and then that's the beginning of that tenant from hell.
Yeah. And that's interesting because someone from your office asked me just last week, probably while they were filling out the amenities form, do I have a pool? And I thought, would I be renting out a house with a pool? But okay, if the developers are coming in and making hay in that part of the market, it certainly makes more sense now.
I'll tell you, it was a tenant that I rented to once before over on 18th Place in Northeast. Yeah. And I won't say much about 18th Place. I did a lot of activity over there. But what I will say is that this tenant, he was a veteran, and I liked him. He was a nice guy. But I saw him. I was when DC Housing Authority was over on 1133, and he saw me and he said, "Hey, Kornegay, come here. I want you to see my house." He was in one of the new built buildings, and he took me on the top and the elevator, the rooftop, and he walked me all around.
Wow.
And the whole time, he had his drink and he was stammering around, but he was happy.
Yeah.
And it had pools, it had things that I don't have.
Really?
And yeah, that's
so
what's going
landlords
on.
out there, there's a note to self. Put your best foot forward. What else? What haven't I brought up that we should know about your business or about this part of the market?
About this business.
Because it's very unique. I mean, it's not something that crosses your desk every day. Even as a professional in this part of the market, I've been in mortgages for more than 10 years now, and real estate prior to that. So I'm curious.
I think here's something that's interesting. So it sort of ties into that. Well, I rent out to Section 8. And I said Section 8 is like the military. There's so many different branches.
Yeah.
So it's different branches. There's different lease packages. They call them RFTA packages.
Okay.
And there's different things to do with each one.
Ah.
And to us, we all say, hey, this Section 8 packet. But it's not. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people who try to do their work on their own, they get hamstrung. You submit a package that was supposed to go over here, over there. They look at it and say, I don't know what this is, and let it sit for a month. Meanwhile, your tenant is wondering what's going on. Then somebody, maybe eventually after you call and blow them up, then they say, well, this is not us, it has to go here. So it's what I wish also is that there weren't so many different packages and so many different processes. This one you submit to the owner portal. This one you have to submit to the Urban League. This one you have to submit through this portal here. This one you have to. So it makes it even tough for us. I have a transaction coordinator who's a real transaction coordinator. He's been doing it. He's out of Texas. Yeah? Okay. And before he met me, he was like in front of where I am. Just in terms of his experience, but he finds it difficult to keep track. Like this goes here, that goes there, and except for this caveat and that. And he's looking for a pattern so he can be efficient. Yeah. And it's real tough.
Like a web of if-then statements.
Exactly. So if it's tough for somebody like him who was way ahead of me before I even got in, then it's probably tough for the average housing provider trying to do it on their own.
Okay. Is there anything else I haven't touched on that you want to make sure our landlords, our viewers, our potential landlords know about or are aware of?
Well, one thing I would do is, as I'm thinking here, one thing that we started doing is going out meeting developers like during the design period, because a lot of times if you're not aware of the composition, you may be a great developer, but you're not aware of how to optimize the property and keep it marketable at the same time. Because they want to get the extra bedrooms and they put all the high-end things in there, but sometimes it's not functional. I've seen landlords with a 3-bedroom with a stand-up shower, only with the 1 bathroom. But then, what percentage of the market are you cutting out? Because what percentage of 3-bedroom parents are going to have a small kid? So things like that. So I think that it's good to have the person go out to advise developers before they embark on their project without that type of insight.
Yeah. Okay. So the name of the podcast is Coffee and Kale. That's because those are the two things that keep me going. Coffee and kale in one form or another. I'm interested. What are the 2 or more things that keep you going? What keeps you motivated both in business and just in general? Doesn't have to be 2. It can be as many as are necessary.
Yeah. So I like, always when you have children. That's fun, right? But before my daughter was born, I was in this business. So one thing that keeps me going, it's very rewarding, moving families in places where they can position themselves, packaging them where they can position themselves to get their children in certain schools and to get away from certain activity, so that they can do the things that I said in the beginning of the podcast that my family did, transition out of it. So a lot of it just has to do with exposure, environment, what's the standard, the norms. And I can't save the world, but it's enough people that I've transitioned, move here, and they're just so happy. It's so rewarding. Actually, the housing providers pay the money, but the way that you impact the tenants, even though they don't pay, that's the ones that get you mushy. You know?
Yeah.
The money makes you mushy too. But,
you know, in a different way.
In a different way.
Thank you again for joining us today. And for those of you out there, please do comment, like, and subscribe. And join us next time on Coffee and Kale.